Hey everybody, Smart Silver Stacker here. Hope you're doing well. Entities around the world, ranging all the way from the state of Texas to the BRICS nations, are looking for alternatives to the US dollar paper fiat system, and they are transitioning into hard physical assets. Last week, we learned that lawmakers in Texas had proposed a bill that would create a gold backed digital currency in the state of Texas. And it's pretty interesting when you dig into the text of this legislation. It appears that this digital currency would not only be backed by gold, but it would also be redeemable and convertible into physical bullion. And Texas is not alone in making this move. They are just the latest in a growing list of U.S. states who are looking for alternatives to the dollar. I covered earlier this year, Idaho had proposed a bill that would allow the Idaho state treasurer to invest idle state funds into physical gold and also into silver. So it is very telling that these states within the US are looking to de-dollarize to an extent. This is not just an international phenomenon being carried out by the opponents of the US on the geopolitical chessboard. It is also the individual states as well, because they see the writing on the wall for the dollar. They see the inflation, they see the continued profligate spending in Washington, and so they are doing their best to get prepared. Now, I would like you to leave me a comment down below to let me know what you think about this Texas gold-backed digital currency. Is this something that you would be interested in using? Do you trust a digital currency, even if the law states that it's convertible into gold? I'm kind of on the fence about it. I think that it would be a move in the right direction. It would be a better alternative to a fiat paper system for transactions in the economy. But in this day and age, this time of uncertainty, this time when we see banks failing and money being printed like crazy, and the rules can kind of change on you at any moment, I am still very much in favor of holding physical metal when it comes to a store of long-term value. And I am certainly not alone in that. We have recently seen a massive surge in interest in physical bullion, both gold and silver. SD Bullion, for example, we know that they have seen a huge influx of orders. They have recently been forced to set a $500 minimum order. Now, that is a temporary measure. It's to help them get through the giant backlog of orders that they were inundated with following the collapse of SVB and Signature Bank. I ordered some gold from them back on March 27th, and it just shipped out yesterday. So that's about 15 days to ship an order. And that is certainly a much longer delay than I am accustomed to seeing when I order from SD Bullion. Usually they get the stuff out right away, but this just shows us that there is a huge influx and a huge rise in interest in physical metal, physical tangible assets. And I know a lot of people in the comments have been kind of complaining about that. I mean, SD Bullion is a channel sponsor. I buy most of my bullion from them. They still have the deal going on at sdbullion.com/new, where new customers can get gold or silver at spot. So if you're new to stacking, definitely check that out. But a lot of people seem to be very turned off by this minimum order that they have implemented. And all I have to say about that is it's unfortunate. I wish they didn't have to do it. But there's a reason that folks like myself and all of us in the stacking community have been saying, get your hands on physical metal now before it becomes unobtainable. Because just look at how tight things are right now in the physical market. If you order from any online dealer, you're going to be waiting a while before they ship it out. And that goes to show that there is a bit of a bottleneck in the physical bullion market. I mean, if you want to get paper silver, you can go out and buy SLV right now, no problem, right? But who knows if there's actually any metal backing that stuff up. I mean, just look at that story we saw where JP Morgan thought they had some nickel in a warehouse. Turned out it was just rocks. So, buy paper assets at your own peril. But when it comes to physical, things are already extremely tight. And as far as, the economic collapse that we're witnessing, the show is just getting started. So imagine when we get the next bank failure or next black swan event. I mean, I can't tell you what it's going to be. I don't have a crystal ball, but I can tell you that there's a huge amount of leverage and debt in this economy. We have inflation, which is continuing to run rampant, run out of control. And, this inflation is just a cumulative thing. We're just seeing prices go up and up and up. And really, there's no hope, I don't think, that they're going to be coming down anytime soon. And it's only a matter of time before more entities, more individuals, more investors try to move into the physical metals. So, you might have to wait a little while to get your metal shipped out right now. Maybe you can go down to a local coin shop and still get some bullion in your hand, but there's a day coming, I'm telling you, when that's not going to be the case, and this stuff is going to be very hard to obtain and to come by. That's why you've got to act now. It's not financial advice, just sharing with you my thoughts. I am continuing to stack, despite the fact that metals have continued their upward trend. At the time I'm recording this video, gold still over $2,000 an ounce, silver still over 25 bucks an ounce. We have seen them holding on to the gains of the recent weeks. Now, one of the things that really stands out to me when we see this news of this Texas gold-backed digital currency is that the de-dollarization, the profligate spending in Washington, the inflation, all the risks to our currency, the threats to the dollar status as a world reserve currency have become so prominent now that it has caused such disparate entities as the state of Texas and Iran and Russia to pursue the same economic policies. I mean, that is a strange world we're living in when we're seeing this. And of course, it was just back in January that the central banks of Iran and Russia announced that they too were working on creating a gold-backed digital currency, a stable coin as they described it. And this currency that Iran and Russia are working on, it's designed for the settlement of international trade. Now, at the time they made that announcement back in January, that was certainly a notable story, and it reflects the de-dollarization trend, which is ongoing. But there have been some geopolitical developments that make this story worth another look, I believe, because at the time that Iran and Russia announced this gold-backed stablecoin, Iran and Saudi Arabia were still embroiled in conflict. But since that time, there has been a peace deal brokered between Iran and Saudi Arabia by none other than China, one of the BRICS nations. And last week, the most recent development is that representatives from both countries met in China to reestablish their diplomatic ties. So in January, this gold-backed digital currency designed for the international settlement of payments, very likely for energy payments, considering the fact that Iran and Russia both have large energy reserves, it didn't seem like that huge of a threat to the petrodollar because, again, Iran and Saudi Arabia were at odds with one another. But now that they have become pals on the geopolitical stage, and very likely both will be joining the BRICS nations in August at the BRICS summit, it's beginning to look like maybe this gold-backed stablecoin is something that we should be concerned about in terms of undermining the petrodollar system. I mean, we've had China wooing the Gulf states and Saudi Arabia trying to get them to price their oil exports in yuan, but perhaps they will be pricing it in something like this gold-backed stablecoin in the very near future. So there are multiple threats to the petrodollar system at the moment. Now, Texas, they may be moving towards a gold-backed currency at the state level, and I think that that's probably a wise move for them. But we've also heard some discussion of a gold-backed US dollar at the federal level. It was last year, at the end of last year, that Representative Alex Mooney of West Virginia introduced the Gold Standard Restoration Act. And I covered this at the time, but as we're seeing this trend towards gold backing of currencies, I think it is worth revisiting this idea. The Gold Standard Restoration Act, what it would do is it would require the U.S. gold holdings to be audited, and then it would require the U.S. dollar to be backed by gold, to be pegged to gold once again. And I mean, obviously, very little chance that this is going to make its way through the House or the Senate. I don't think there's much political will for this, because one of the things it would require the government to do is rein in their profligate spending, balance the budget, and of course that's not very popular due to all of the entitlement programs. But the problem here is that so many dollars have been created since the dollar was taken off of the gold standard by Nixon back in '71, since he ended dollar convertibility into gold.
I have directed Secretary Connally to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold.
That at this point, if we were to peg the dollar to gold, if we were to back the dollar with gold like Representative Mooney suggests, it would require a massive devaluation of the US dollar. And we can just do the math. It's very easy to do. We just look at the M2 money supply, which According to the latest data, it sits just over $21 trillion, and we can compare that to the official U.S. gold reserves at 261,498,926 ounces. Of course, if we see an audit of U.S. gold reserves, maybe that wouldn't be the number, but just for the sake of argument, let's assume that all the gold actually is there. And we can see that if we were to fully back the M2 money supply with gold, it would require a gold price of nearly $80,000 per ounce. So massive devaluation of the dollar from its current level. And I know that, it's not necessarily required that we would back up the dollar 100%. I believe back in 1913, when the Federal Reserve was created, the idea was to back up about 40% of the dollars with gold, or a 40% gold backing. But even at that level of backing, you would need a gold price of about $32,000 an ounce. So again, a massive devaluation. And so it's not very likely, for multiple reasons, that we are going to see a gold-backed dollar anytime soon, because on the one hand, it would require a massive devaluation of the dollar, and on the other hand, it would require that the government rein in their spending, and there's very little chance that we will see politicians willingly go down either of those paths. But the problem here is that when you look at how many dollars have been created and you compare it to our official gold holdings, you can kind of see that a devaluation of the dollar is already guaranteed. I mean, either way, whether we back it with gold or not, because without the gold backing, we're continuing to run massive deficits. We are continuing to inflate the currency away, expand the money supply. So, the US dollar devaluation is basically inevitable. That is why I am going to be following the lead of Iran, Russia, China, the state of Texas, Idaho, other states throughout the US. A number of states are moving towards hard assets, central banks around the world, all of these entities who are moving into hard assets. I am going to follow their lead. And it's clear that this list of entities who are moving into hard assets is growing. Texas is just the latest on the list. And as it continues to grow, competition for physical metal, for physical gold and silver, is only going to intensify. And the reality is that the global economy right now, it is like a sinking ship, and there's just not enough lifeboats on the ship. And right now, the majority of the passengers on this ship are still unaware of the threat that they are facing. But that could change at a moment's notice. And when it does, this stuff is going to become very hard to get. Forget 15-day shipping times, forget high premiums at your local coin shop. No, it's going to be a name your price kind of situation for bullion when that occurs. And that's why you've got to get into position before that happens, before it's too late. Not, maybe this won't happen for a while. Maybe it'll be a year or two down the road, maybe 5 years, who knows. But it could happen a lot sooner than that. And when it comes to currency crisis and getting your hands on hard assets, it is a lot better to be early than to be late, because once you're too late, it really is too late and you won't be able to get your hands on this stuff. So leave me a comment down below to let me know what you think. Thanks for watching, everybody. Stay safe and happy stacking, and I will catch you next time. Smart Silver Stacker, out.